Roll mine, sports show. Roll mine, sports show. Prime time, let's go. To be the best, you gotta beat the best. I'm like Curry in the clutch when it comes to this. Switch, all next, go and place your bets. This ain't checkers, this is chess, what's your best move? Fun debates about the greats and live interviews with a chosen few who did what they had to do. On the road to glory, telling untold stories. If it's 4th and 10 for the win, I'm going for it. Yeah, that's all mine, speaking with a raw mind. Been in the shadow for too long, now it's time to shine. Yeah, that's all mine, speaking with a raw mind. On the ladder to success, now it's time to climb. Raw mind, sports show. Raw mind, sports show. With prime time, let's go. Raw mind, sports show.
Look or listen no further. This is your host, Ryan Primetime Jones, where I dig into the mind of sports fanatics and athletes, as well as give you my mind on the sports topics you need to know. To be the best, you got to beat the best. Speaking with a raw mind, this is Raw Mind Sports. Let's go! Welcome to Raw Mind Sports. This is your host, Ryan Primetime Jones. We're here today with Coach John Thompson of North Carolina Wesleyan basketball. He is the all-time winningest coach at North Carolina Wesleyan. He also, before he started coaching, he was also successful playing the game of basketball himself. And we're going to kind of dive into him to see what led him into coaching and what keeps him here coaching at North Carolina Wesleyan. So, Mr. John Thompson, appreciate you coming on the show. Let's talk about where you from, your basketball career as well, and the discipline you took to the next level.
Okay. Well, first of all, thanks for having me. I'm from Durham, so grew up there, played basketball at Jordan High School in Durham, and really fell in love with the game probably about 7th or 8th grade, and I had a chance to play with and against some really outstanding players. There were great players in Durham at the time. The Thompson brothers, Morris and Bubba, who went on to great things at Mercer University and at A&T. Charles Thaxton and Anthony Miles and Leon McCrae, and the list goes on and on. Tommy Bethea and Barry Taylor at Northern Durham High School. So I was in a place where there was great basketball being played, and I just fell in love with the game. And was fortunate enough to have the opportunity to continue playing at the collegiate level. I do not think now, in retrospect, as a 57-year-old college basketball coach, I don't think I was a great player. But because of my love and passion for the game, I was able to make myself into a player that could continue his career. And so played 4 years of college basketball, graduated from UNC Greensboro, and didn't initially get into coaching for a variety of reasons. My father passed away 2 months before I graduated, and so I went back to try to be there for my mom a little bit, and kind of treaded water for a year and a half, wasn't really sure what I was going to pursue. And in that time, I realized that coaching is really what I wanted to do. I wasn't good enough to continue playing professionally in the U.S. or anywhere in the country or anywhere in the world. So coaching was what I wanted to do. And again, I got fortunate. Some people were willing to help me out and help me get a start, and been grinding ever since.
Wow. Let's talk about, you say your father had passed 2 months before you graduated. Let's talk about, how did you manage to keep yourself so focused to even still to think about basketball during that time, that distraught time with you and your mom going through that?
Right. Well, I guess from a basketball standpoint, my senior season was over. So that part of my life was the book had closed. So I didn't have to manage that. And it did impact me in terms of, just focus on a lot of things. I probably was not as good in those last 2 months of school. But I guess I'd laid enough groundwork that it got me through. But it was really the next couple of months, the next year, that made an impact as far as being able to manage my feelings about losing my dad, and was I going to stay in Durham and just work a job, or was I going to pursue my passion of coaching and being involved in the game of basketball and let that take me wherever it went?
What was something that your dad did put into you or instilled into you as time moved on? I'm pretty sure your mom and dad was pretty much behind you every step of the way of your basketball career playing. So what did he do?
Yeah, that's the easy question. The number one thing that my dad did for me was he taught me how to be a professional. Whatever endeavors I got into, he taught me how to be a professional. He himself was a radio and television journalist. And television news. The last job that he had before he passed was he had his own radio show. But he was the consummate professional. The way he conducted himself, he always taught me, about how important being on time was, and the way you present yourself and the way you treat people. And so I've always tried to not let him down in that way.
Awesome, man. You did raise a great man.
I appreciate that.
Let's talk about your coaching career, and I'm pretty sure you had different seasons every year. You had different players. So was it the same motto, or for different situations was it different, as in being in strategic basketball wise?
Well, it definitely changes from year to year, and it changes from when you're an assistant coach to a head coach. I think you try to find the strengths and weaknesses that you have in a particular group, because your team changes every year. You have guys graduate, you bring in new players, and so the dynamics of each and every team are different. I think that we look for, whether it's a theme, a motto, whatever, you try to find what is something that maybe is part of what makes this team tick, but also part of what will help make this team successful.
What's your favorite motto, or what's your favorite quote to your players? I know we discussed some earlier with a few of your players, but I know you have a particular thing that you like to say.
Well, I probably have so many. We could do just one entire show on different quotes. Like, I send out something to our players as well as to a few hundred coaches around the country. And then now that I've become part of the social media world, I also put it out on Twitter and Instagram. But I send out something called Thoughts for the Day.
Oh, wow.
And so today, as a matter of fact, I quoted Thomas Edison. Sometimes I quote Larry Bird or Kevin Garnett or Julius Erving or lots of guys from the basketball world, but I may also quote Martin Luther King Jr. or Abraham Lincoln equally. So I have lots of quotes from other people that I like to share. The two that my players shared with you as we were walking in, one is control what you can control. We talk a lot about how we can't control the officials, whether they blow a call, whether they miss a call. We have no control over that. What we can control is how we react to it. When we go on the road to play, we can't control the opposing team's crowd. So if they're really on you, we have no control over that. We can control how we respond to that. And the same is true in everyday life. There are things that happen to you in everyday life that you can't control, but you can control your response. And so I think that it's important for our guys to learn that in life, you're going to experience adversity. You're not always in control of that adversity. Here in our region, we just had a hurricane come through a month or so ago. We had no control over that. We had no control over the devastation that took place, but we can control our responses to that. So that's an important one for us is, controlling what you can control in a situation.
Right, man. Control what you want to control. You were just talking a few minutes ago about the quotes that you gave out to a lot of coaches. Let's talk about you being a part of the NCAA committee and as well as all the coaches and the network you've been around, and also what you have instilled into them and also what those coaches have instilled into you.
Well, I've been really fortunate. You mentioned the NCAA Rules Committee, and that's certainly one of the highlights of my career, to be part of that. As you look back, and I did when I was on the committee, which I was on that Rules Committee from 2007 to 2011 for a 4-year term. While I was on the committee, I looked back at who were the coaches who had previously served on that committee. And when I saw names like Adolph Rupp and John Wooden, I'm getting goosebumps right now thinking about I'm serving on a committee, and this was basketball rules. This is the playing rules of the game. This isn't NCAA recruiting violations or any. This is, putting the 3-point line in. I was there when we put in the restricted area arc for blocks and charges. Do we move the 3-point line? Do we change the dimensions of the lane? When I was there, we were talking about, and I would anticipate sometime in the future that we may eventually move from our current 12-foot lane to a 16-foot lane like the NBA uses. I think that will be coming at some point in the future. So to be part of those discussions and part of a group of coaches who gives back to the game by helping to make it better. All of this movement now about freedom of player movement, reducing physicality, allowing a free-flowing game as opposed to a wrestling match. I was involved in those discussions and a part of that. And so that's humbling to have that opportunity. And many coaches that I was on, the committee, my last year was chaired by Mike Bray at Notre Dame, who is a longtime friend of mine. He's great
at the spread offense, too.
He's outstanding. He's an outstanding coach. He's a great person. He's been very good to me. And, I've been very fortunate in my career that, God's placed me in situations where I've been really exposed to outstanding coaches, many of the names you will know, like Mike Bray, like Mike Krzyzewski at Duke, like Roy Williams, like Jim Boeheim, like Billy Donovan, but many of the coaches that you wouldn't know, like Jack Jensen, who I worked for 7 years at Guilford College. He's in the NAIA Hall of Fame, coached 4 NBA players there. Mark Simons, who was the first coach that I worked for. I've been exposed to a lot of really good coaches, and I learned something from all of them. Other coaches that I've been around have been way better to me than I deserve, and I learned something from all of them.
Amazing. So let's talk about your experience with the Junior USA basketball team, man. How did that experience actually make you into even a better coach?
Well, it was another tremendous experience for me. Very fortunate to have been selected to be part of that group that coached that team. I was part of what they call the court coaches, who really coached the team through training camp. And it enabled me to spend a week with outstanding coaches, again, Billy Donovan, Jim Boeheim, Roy Williams, Lorenzo Romar, who at the time was at Washington, Frank Martin at South Carolina, and others. And It gave me the chance to work with an extremely high level of player. Marcus Smart from the Celtics, Julius Randle from the Pelicans, Chris Dunn from the Bulls, and many others. So that was exciting to coach the caliber of player that we had there. But what I really learned, the biggest single thing that I learned out of that experience was, and at those times, those guys were 18 years old.
Right.
They were no different than my guys here at North Carolina Wesleyan. Maybe they, at a given position, were 2 or 3 inches taller. Maybe they could jump a little higher. Maybe they were a little bigger physically. But they were 18-year-old kids. And sometimes I think when we look at players on TV and we see whether they are 19-year-old guys who are going into the NBA, or maybe, like a guy like Zion Williamson at Duke right now as a freshman, we look at them physically and we expect a maturity level out of them of a 35-year-old or something. And so when they make a mistake in a game, or when they misspeak in front of a camera, those kids, they're 18-year-old kids.
Right.
They listen to the same music. They think the same things are funny.
Right.
They play the same practical jokes on each other that our guys would here at North Carolina Wesleyan. So that was, and it probably wasn't so much that I learned that, it really kind of confirmed maybe what I already thought, but it was just interesting to see those players who are under such a magnifying glass. They're just kids.
Right. I was going to ask you that. You actually pretty much took words out of my mouth. I know, like I always tell people, like I said, just because a kid is very dominant or even great, but if you're 18 years old, you're 18 years old from a mindset, but as you may be tough on the court or whatever sport you may play, physically, but that doesn't mean that you're mentally mature, even though your body says different. Let's talk about here at Wesleyan about what you have done, and also about your season this year, and what are your plans for the future, of Wesleyan basketball, North Carolina Wesleyan basketball.
Right. Well, obviously we've had lots of really good players here, and whatever success we have had has been because we've had some really outstanding players. This coming season, we have high expectations. We have a returning group that's very strong. We won our conference regular season last year. Unfortunately, in the conference tournament, we lost on a tip-in at the buzzer, so we did not advance. And we want to advance this year. We want this team to win not only the regular season, we want to win the tournament. We want to advance to the NCWCs, and so there's a lot of work to be done to do that. But we like this group. We have 4 returning starters from last year. We have a number of outstanding players. A.J. Fry was all-league last year. Robert Wilson was all-league last year. We've got our starting backcourt back. So I think there's lots of potential. But potential doesn't get you very far. You've got to perform. And so we're working hard. The guys are working hard. I like our group. I like our chemistry. I think we have the right pieces, and I think we have the right kind of people that give us a chance to have success. Now, there are 11 other teams in our league that they're all working for the same thing. So we got to go out and compete.
Wow. Speaking of working hard, since your group of guys work hard, let's talk about, do they eat healthy? So what do you recommend, or do you have them guys on a diet? Or?
Well, we don't. We don't have the ability here to maybe put them on as on the type of dietary program that we might if we were somewhere else. That's just not part of our capability. Okay. But obviously we're always talking about eating well and taking care of your body. This is, their body is what they use to operate. And so proper rest, not only is what they eat, but getting enough sleep, proper hydration, and eating well, all kind of funnels into that performance on the court, and it also impacts their ability to think and focus. And so while we don't have them on a specific diet, it certainly is important.
I'm gonna have a few random questions outside of basketball for you now.
Sure.
Coach Thompson, what's a day like for Coach Thompson without basketball? Also, what's your favorite food? And also, what do you like to listen to musically?
All right. So outside of basketball, my days are usually filled with family, whatever that might be. Whether it's just spending a little time watching some NFL football yesterday, or whether Washington Redskins.
Oh God, you and my uncle love each other.
Well, when I grew up, there were no Carolina Panthers, and so the Redskins were what we got every week. And it was easy to become a Redskins fan. But at any rate, so whether it's just doing that, or, if we go to the beach for some time in the summer or whatever, it's family time, whether it's with my mom or my sister who lives in Connecticut is flying in later this week, and I'm going to be able to spend some time with her. So I would say most of my downtime is spent with family. What's my favorite food? I love everything. I love to eat. I consider myself somewhat of a connoisseur of pizza. There's so many different types of pizza, and I kind of like it all, but definitely enjoy that. Enjoy Italian all the way around. I love a good steak. I love chicken anyway. I probably should cut down on fried chicken, but I love it. Barbecue chicken, baked chicken, like I can take it any kind of way. I'm all over the map there a little bit. I probably have some interest in everything but country. I just not feeling country. I grew up in the 70s and college in the 80s. I'm definitely an old school hip hop rap guy, Run DMC.
Man. Oh my, you're my uncle. Redskins and Run DMC. My goodness.
Run DMC, LL Cool J, Heavy D and the Boys, any of those. I love jazz. Earth, Wind and Fire from back in my day. I'm a big Frankie Beverly and Mays guy, but also like some rock, Led Zeppelin and folks of that era.
The stuff you just named, you might could do a step or two. You might could dance.
Maybe. But I also like 40s big band stuff, and so I'm kind of all over. I told you my dad had a radio show.
Yeah.
The last job that he had, and his show was called Now and Then.
Wow.
And he used to play big band music from the 40s. He played like Miles Davis from the 60s. Mm-hmm. And then I would turn him on to Earth, Wind and Fire and Chicago and a variety of things that he would also mix it. So it was Now and Then. So
speaking of music, since we were just talking about that, I know your players have this, probably the modern day music, and I'm pretty sure you probably in the locker room, you probably hear certain stuff. Have you ever had something where you say, that's not music, or you ever had like a conflict with it? Not conflict, but funny.
It's not so much that I say, well, that's not music, or that's not like back in my day.
Yeah.
But it's more like I just, the extreme use of profanity.
Yeah.
I can't get with it. So we have a rule that if they're listening to anything like that with the explicit lyrics, you can listen to that in your headphones. But if I hear it, I'm taking whatever device it is, I'm taking that from you. So that's my only thing, that I think you can create great music and great art without that.
Man, those are some interesting topics I had to pick your brain with. And by the way, people, we on Raw Mind Sports. We are actually in the office of John Thompson's at North Carolina Wesleyan. And I got another question for him. I'm pretty sure you see in the background books and other pictures. Let's talk about what's your favorite book and what do you take from that book?
Well, I have lots of favorite books there too. It's impossible for me to narrow it down. One of my favorites is called Values of the Game by Bill Bradley, former great New York Knicks, in the Hall of Fame. He ran for president later in life. And it talks about the values that he learned and that I think many of us can learn through playing the game of basketball. Winning is an Attitude is a book about John Chaney, another one of my mentors, the former head coach at Temple University. Coach Chaney, every time I speak with him, I learn something. I become smarter just by being around him. So I loved reading more about his team and his coaching. There's a book by a guy named Chris Ballard called The Art of the Beautiful Game. And it really breaks basketball down into each chapter is kind of about a different part of basketball. The Winner Within is a book by Pat Riley, who was obviously a great coach of the Lakers and then the Knicks and then the Heat, now in the front office there. But from every book, I think, again, you can learn something. You can draw something. I don't know that there's any one thing that stands out from each of those, but I think it's all of those things, all those coaches that I've interacted with, all those books that I've read, in combination, they kind of make you who you are, make me who I am. You try and learn, and find out what was successful for someone else, and try to draw, is that something that's applicable for me? Is that something, or does it not make sense for me? But either way, I think you can learn from it.
Amazing. In conclusion, of Raw Mind Sports, you reap the fruits of your labor. With Coach John Thompson in his office, from the stories that he just gave us and how he became successful as he was, he learned a lot from a lot of people. He also poured into a lot of people as well. But with his humility, he'll probably say they all gave him. With that being said, I appreciate you, Coach John Thompson, on the show.
Thank you for having me.
I enjoy having a conversation with you today, and also I can't wait to see your games this year. Maybe you could bring back something to this town of Rocky Mount.
Absolutely. We would love to do it.
That's it, people. You have a nice day.